32 minutes past the hour. We thank you for staying with us right here on the Daily Report. As promised, every Monday, we bring you the Power and Politics segment. Tonight, I host two gentlemen. To my immediate right is Barnabas Kiplagat-Boyd, political strategist and advisor. Thank you, Boyd, for joining us.
Welcome.
Brilliant. And Fred Okango, Political Affairs Secretary, Azimio. Thank you, Fred, for joining us on the program.
Thank you.
Brilliant. And I'll begin by picking your minds. A lot has been happening lately, but I'll begin by picking your minds and perhaps with you, Boyd, regarding the list we saw of the appointees to ambassadors and heads of consulars abroad. What did you make of that list?
Good evening, viewers. First, let me say that I believe that all those who are appointed to serve in those positions are Kenyans, and they were due consideration as to why they were appointed. I don't doubt the judgment of His Excellency the President when making those appointments. And what is only required of these people is to up their game and promote the interest of the people of Kenya when they are outside the country. Okay. You know, a lot of times there has been a challenge when people pursue personal interest instead of the interest of the country. So I would say that it's up to them to prove that they are worth of their appointment.
Okay. We did see the return of Ezra Chiloba. What did you make of that as well? He seems to be surviving and having 9 lives in matters appointments.
He may be lucky to have been appointed for a third time.
Okay.
IBC Communication Authority and then landing an ambassadorial job. But Ezra Chiloba is a competent person. I don't believe that the allegations that were made against him when as CAK were merited. It was just boardroom politics that hounded him out of that CAK position. So I think he's a worthy appointment. Is worthy of that position.
Okay. Fred, what do you make of that list, the return of Ezra Chiloba and of course the 2 generals who had retired to be appointed?
Thank you so much. First of all, any appointment must be based on the suitability, capability of an individual. That can only be tested at the point of approval. If there are names that will have to go through Parliament, then for sure their suitability and capability can only be tested at that time. That's when you can know. Number 2, something interesting in that list is that there are names that came up that have been recycled all over. Somebody like Ezra Chiloba, I'm not doubting his capability and suitability in any way, but you cannot be the luckiest boy in town for all that time. I'm sure that opportunity also could have gone to other lucky, suitable and capable individuals. I'm not doubting his capability. In any case, he's my friend and I know he's suitable. Then the other thing that I noticed is, which is very good, is the issue of gender, particularly concerning the women. The women of Kenya for a very long time have been crying for top jobs in this country. And at a time when we are struggling with the 2/3 gender, it was a good gesture from Honorable Ruto to try and appoint women, because the only opportunity that the president has to achieve a 2/3 gender in appointment is through appointment by himself. Because in elective positions as it is today, it will be very difficult to dictate to the electorate that you must elect a woman. And therefore, to that extent, there he must have excelled. Number 3, I also noticed that they are relatively middle-aged appointees. Previously, we have seen those who are given ambassadorial jobs are career diplomats, retired, old. But this time round, I noticed the age is not very old, also not very young. So other than also a few political rejects that I saw in the list, I must say that we are waiting to see their what they'll do in flying the Kenyan flag out there. But also, it's coming at a time when reports are coming out that the Kenyan embassies abroad are starved of cash. They are not being funded, the staff are not there, some are idle. So those are issues or challenges, if I may call them, that we must be alive to. And we strongly believe that with this new change in doing things, then we shall give life to our embassies abroad, and we shall give life to the new energy that the Honorable Ruto is trying to inject into these embassies abroad.
But do you agree? I could see you nodding at Okango's sentiments.
No, for the first time, I think we have a head of state who has the courage to do what is right. And the only difference is that I would urge, because the president has the courage to do what is right, however painful it is. What we need is that the people who have been appointed should match what the president expects of them to deliver for the people of Kenya. I would still emphasize that people be placed according to their own areas of specialization, so that we get the best out of the Kenyan population. We get the best and competent people through merit to run organization or represent the country outside. All we need is, let's give them a chance to prove themselves to the appointing authority that they actually deserved to be appointed to those positions.
Okay. Yeah. Today, Fred, Azimio appointed former Attorney General Amos Wako to head a 3-person team representing Azimio in the 2022 presidential election audit. This was a thorny issue during the talks and, of course, during the mandamano that we saw last year. What inspired this appointment of Amos Wako?
First of all, let me start from the beginning.
Yes.
You recall that in the National Dialogue Committee report, the committee recommended that within 21 days upon adoption of the report by the bicameral House, then the two parties, the Kenya Kwanza and Azimio, shall each appoint a panel that will audit the 2022 presidential elections. As we speak today, that report has been adopted by the two houses. The report came with what we call legislative instruments, 9 of them. Now, it is only fair that we stick to the report recommendation. I am not sure if Kenya Kwanza have plans to appoint, but I think because the report is binding, it was a consensus document, we are waiting to see who they will appoint. And again, the recommendation of the committee also says that the two sides of the political divide can each come with their audit firms. If they fail to agree on a joint audit firm, that will do that. Why this is important is because you remember one of the issues that we brought as a concern for discussion or dialogue was electoral justice and related matters. Now, in auditing the 2022 presidential elections, we are not intending to achieve who lost, who won, but we are intending to ensure that in operationalizing IEBC, they will be efficient, effective, transparent, and accountable. And that follows the recommendation that every time IEBC, by law, Article 88(4)H, they are mandated to do observation, monitoring, and evaluation. But the aspect of evaluation, they have never facilitated. They have facilitated monitoring. They facilitate, they monitor elections, they observe, they facilitate observation of election, but they have never evaluated their conduct. So It is in our interest as the people of Kenya that this time round we audit this election and get to know what really happened. This will help the IBC that is coming in place, and also it will also put to rest the issues of 2022 presidential election, because we hold the view as Azimio that we won the election. We do hold that view. However, because we went into a contest and that contest panned out the way it was, people went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court heard that matter and made a determination. And then there were issues of protest. There were issues of cost of living. We went to Mandamano. But William Ruto and Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga agreed to go into a dialogue. The dialogue product is the NADCO report that has recommended that now we audit the 2022 presidential election. But you have asked me a specific question. Why Amos Wako?
Yes.
I think in the view of Azimio, Amos Wako, from his experience, a senior lawyer, experienced, having seen it all, having been Attorney General, he has got both political acumen, the wherewithal, the suitability and capability to do that job. And I believe that he'll do a better job, he'll do a good job. We are waiting for the outcome. And Kenyans are eagerly waiting to see, in this last election, where did we go wrong as a country? Where did we go well as a country? And that audit will do. It is not only an audit, it's going to be a forensic audit and a systems audit.
But what inspired the sliding in of the reopening or revisiting the political audit of the 2022 general election, because the results, because it has been a thorny issue, especially for Kenya Kwanza, which has maintained that there is no need to revisit or really look into the past?
Okay, I think the issue of the 2022 election was contested. It was taken to Supreme Court.
Yes.
Supreme Court made its findings, and Kenyans know the truth. What my friend is saying, that Azimio won. Azimio never won the election. The issue is that we are dealing with politicians. Politicians think about an election and now next election. My thinking would be that the most urgent thing is having credible commissioners in place to prepare for 2027 elections, and taking into consideration what the Supreme Court considered as, the things which were wrong with the elections. So what we need to do is build the capacity of IBC. It is important to stagger the appointment of commissioners so that we don't have all the commissioners exiting at the same time. Like now we don't have anybody in the commission. Maybe half the commissioners can be staggered, so that we have an institutional memory for future elections, instead of having the whole set of commissioners leaving IBC at one point. Now, Kenya Kwanza has a duty, and they have an obligation to do to Kenyans what they promised they would do. Now, if we dwell so much on the 2022 election, and then after 1.5 years or so, we are dealing about 2027 without actually dealing with the issues which are important to Kenyans, then we would be losing the point. We would be losing the point because the people of Kenya deserve better. I would tell you, for example, the biggest challenge that we have in leadership in both our country is political party nominations, both in Azimio and in Kenya Kwanza, where we don't have credible nominations by political parties. You end up not having good leaders who have gone through a credible nomination process. Because in some strongholds when you have a party ticket, it's as good as winning an election. So the most important thing that I think we should do is appointment of the commissioners. They have an important task of boundary delimitation, which actually should be done also in time before the next election. Second is both Azimio. I think one of the things that was missed out in the NADCO report is credible party primaries, so that we can have a credible parliament. We have people who can, because parliament is important. It's important because it vets most of the appointments of state. It is supposed to hold the executive to account. But if the process by which these leaders are elected is fraudulent, it will mean we will still have leaders who are not credible enough to be our leaders.
Yes, Fred.
You remember, and I like Boyd because that is self-admission, that they have got people in UDA who are elected and they are fraudulent, they are not capable to do the job. And that admission is on a national TV. I think that's a very good thing. But you see, what we know, because he has not answered your question, the issue of audit. Why is audit important? And you have told him that this was a thorn in their flesh because they believed that they won the election. He has said that Azimio never won the election. Maybe he's basing his argument on the Supreme Court ruling, which fair enough. But we have demonstrated before that this election did not go according to the general principle of electoral system as provided for in Article 81. And we have seen the election must follow certain principles. In our view, it did not, and we demonstrated that. We were told that is hot air, wild goose chase, and fool's errand. What we are saying, that's fair, but now, what do we do to avoid such scenarios of words like hot air, fool's errand, wild goose chase? We must audit the election. And I started by saying, we are not auditing the election to chase Boyd and team from the seat of power. No, we are auditing election so that we can fix the issues of concern to the people as far as elections are concerned. It is important that IEBC, after every election, evaluate themselves. And in the recommendation of the NADCO, it is there. We are saying that in auditing the election, it will be important to discover right from when you vote in a polling station, how your vote travels all the way to Bomas. Is it a transparent way? Is it in an accountable way? It is in a simple way? All those principles. Number two, we know that this country, we could be having bogus leaders. We know that. But it is the people who elected them. So when Boyd talks of primaries, and he says that the primaries have not been addressed, and therefore that is an issue of concern to him, and he's forgetting that the bigger issue, the reason why we fight every 5 years is because of stolen election. When a politician says my votes were stolen, and the other said, I defeated you, that is a contestation. So how do we avoid a contestation that is going to put us on the streets? That is why, Mr. Boyd, auditing an election is important. In fact, it would have been even better not only to audit presidential election, but to audit the entire system. That's why for us as EMI, we have said, let's carry out a forensic audit. Then let's do a systems audit. In the last election, we had KIMS kit. We had BVR kits. We had results transmission platforms. What happened to them? Is there an issue? If we say that our election is technologically advanced or oriented, is it making our work easy? Does it reflect in the transparency, in the accountability, in the efficiency of an electoral system? My answer is no. So it is important that we do an audit. However much they don't want it. But I'm happy. Honorable Ruto, when receiving the report, actually said that they will implement the report to the latter. It means from UDA or Kenya Kwanza, if you like, we do expect their team of 3 panels that are going to work together with Amos Wako, Judy Perano, and the other gentleman to do an election audit. It is not for William Ruto, it is not for Raila Odinga, it is for the people of Kenya as we progress. Together with the other recommendations. The recommendations came from the Supreme Court. We have seen them. The other recommendations that have come from IEBC, when they give their report. We have seen them. Now we need another recommendation from forensic auditors, independent party that is not a political player, so that we see, as we advance, how do we make our elections simple, verifiable, transparent, accurate, and accountable.
I think I need to respond to what my friend is saying.
Yes.
First, let me correct him that he's referring to Honorable Ruto. I don't know if it means the same thing as President Ruto.
Actually, calling somebody honorable is more respectful.
Okay. Azimio, in its case of 2022, made a lot of allegations at the Supreme Court. And all their allegations were proved not to be true. Like, for example, in some polling stations that they claimed that there were irregularities, the joint verification showed that there was no irregularities as alleged by Azimio. The only thing that ended the case for Azimio at the Supreme Court was that the 4 commissioners dissented. And there is no law that says that when 4 commissioners dissent on the commissioners, their purpose was to declare a results of the actual vote that was taken by Kenyans. So the main argument for Azimio in the Supreme Court was that the 4 commissioners dissented. But those 4 commissioners were appointed by them. It was appointed by the handshake team.
No.
So it's true.
No,
the question is, of 11 polling stations that Azimio had picked that there were irregularities, after joint verification, the report was tabled before the Supreme Court. There is no single polling station that Azimio says they had votes, and those votes were not accounted at the National Tallying Center. I mean, there is no evidence that was adduced by his team. So it is true that the terms used by the judges at the Supreme Court, I mean, there could not have been any other better way to term what Azimio presented before court. The issue, Chebukati had no role. Chebukati could not change the results, neither the 4 commissioners. They were only supposed to declare results as voted by Kenyans. So I support an audit of the election for purposes of improving future elections. And they should also accept that in an election where you make an allegation, you have to prove that, from this polling station, my candidate had 200 votes. At the National Tallying Center, those votes are 150. I need, there should be some serious inconsistencies to warrant us to question the integrity of IEBC.
Yes, so that we move away from this topic of the...
I wouldn't really want to debate issues of 2022 election.
Yes.
And you know why? Because these are issues that were heard and determined by the Supreme Court.
Yes.
And we, even though we did not agree with the outcome of the Supreme Court, we respected the outcome. And that's why today we can sit Boit on this table and debate. Otherwise, if it was the me of that time, it would be a different debate, and he knows that. Number 2, I want to remind Boit of the role of the commissioners and the chair of IEBC. The reason why the NADCO has recommended the amendment of Article 138 is so that you provide clear role of the commissioners in the verification of the presidential vote before they are declared by the chairman. That was not there. It was not followed. And that's why Chebukati did what he did. But be that as it may, we are moving forward bolder and stronger. Why? Because there is a recommendation that is cogent enough to cure that problem. I would want you, Boit, to go and read the NADCO report, so that in these arguments, you actually have the facts. Your argument is good, but it is not factual. It is not factual in the sense that you are trying to justify what the Chebukati 3 did versus what the Cherera 4 did. This is a commission. 4 has never been, 3 has never been more than 4. If you were to make a decision unanimously and you say, okay, fine, we are going for consensus, 3 are for this, 4 for this, who are the majority? 4. But you are saying because these were handshake picked, you strongly believe that handshake could actually put commissioners in office, and you know the process of appointing a commissioner. right from Schedule 1 of the IBC Act, Boit. You know how they arrived there. You know how they are approved. Your members who are now with you approved those names in Parliament, you know, and they became commissioners. It's not only Azimio-related members.
Okay, so let's close this, but your response to that will close this issue.
You see, my friend Okango seems to be addressing me. I think we are in this show to address the issues before us and to inform Kenyans of certain aspects. You see, the same argument that Azimio had in court is still us. For even if you are majority, you cannot overturn the will of the people of Kenya. The role of IBC is simple: declare the results as people have voted in the constituencies. And even if the majority 4 had a different opinion, that one didn't change any results, and as proved by the decisions of the Supreme Court. However, moving forward, I think what is urgent, as the Amos Wako team looks at the audit, the other important thing is the constitution of IBC to be able to undertake the delimitation of boundaries and prepare for the next election.
By the way, will Kenya Kwanza, before we move on, will Kenya Kwanza be flaunting its team to 3-member team just like Azimio has done?
I hope so, because if that is one of the items that they've decided to, they will walk ahead. I'm thinking that there will be communication from the party as soon as possible.
All right. So let's look at, the bid for AUC by Azimio leader Raila Odinga. And I'll begin with you, Boit. Of course, the election happens next year in 2025. Looking at the prospects, on this one, there seems to be a consensus, an agreement between parties, Kenya Kwanza and Azimio. On this one, you're seeing eye to eye. I mean, you're on the same level on this one. What do you make of this, bid by Azimio leader Raila Odinga? And will it succeed? There are those who are saying this is a bad, backhanded compliment by Kenya Kwanza side.
First of all, Raila Odinga is a Kenyan. And I would like to applaud the president for giving his support as the head of state and reaching out to his colleagues within the East Africa to support Raila. Raila is a Pan-Africanist, as been shown by his track record. We fully support the position of Honorable Raila to be the chair of African Union Commission. We cannot be having a different position as a country when we are fronting our own leader. And you see, in a contested election, the other issue would be Raila would have been president if he had won. So these are alternatives that we have in our country. So that he came second in the presidential election,
yes,
we have no reason why not to support him to ascend to the chair of African Union.
Fred, there seems you guys don't seem to have an issue this time with that appointment, with that bid.
Well, we are alive to the facts. First of all, let me start from who is Raila Odinga and why is Raila Odinga going for the AU? It is his decision. Me and Boit and you and many outside there, other than Honorable William Ruto, have no vote. We can only comment on it. But Raila Odinga, his track record on issues of Pan-Africanism shows that he is eminently qualified for that job. Number two, Raila Odinga has demonstrated on issues of conflict resolution. He qualifies. Now, sometimes back I say that those who are more excited by Raila Odinga's decision to contest the seat of chairman at the African Union Commission are Kenya Kwanza than us as Azimio. He is our party leader. He is my party leader, coalition party leader.
Yes.
And we ought to have been more excited. But you notice that Kenya Kwanza side are more excited than us. Why? The answer is very simple. They believe that in the absence of Raila Amolo Odinga, they are guaranteed of a second term. But they are wrong. They are wrong because Raila Amolo Odinga, as much as he's going to the AUC, and we wish him the best, we would want to see him there because when Raila Amolo Odinga is on that seat,
yes,
the beneficiaries will be Kenyans, not Azimio, not Kenya Kwanza.
In Africa.
When Raila Amolo Odinga sits in Addis Ababa and conferences are brought to Kenya, who are the beneficiary? Kenya Kwanza government. So, as much as they are excited that Raila Amolo Odinga is out of the local politics, but they should also be happy that a man of his stature, eminently qualified, a Pan-African extraordinaire, can bring those investments back. But one thing that interests me is that when you read the rules of procedure of AU, particularly chapter 2 that talks about the commission, it is only the president and heads of state that vote. What is it that would not make Raila Odinga to approach Honorable William Ruto, or President William Ruto, if you like, to ask for the vote? You cannot avoid President William Ruto if you are going for the AUC. And we have advised our principal that the best thing he can do is to reach out to all the African heads of state that are qualified to vote at the AUC assembly at that time, at the EU assembly. William Ruto is one of them. And that's why when Raila Amolo Odinga went to Uganda to see President Museveni, he met President Ruto there and he asked for his vote. And President William Ruto has agreed that he will be voting for Raila Amolo Odinga. Not because Raila Amolo Odinga is from Kenya, but because Raila Amolo Odinga is qualified. Number two, we also know that Kenya as a country has got a crucial role in securing the win for Raila Amolo Odinga. Because now this is an international duty. If you look at qualified Kenyans who are undertaking international duty, they are very few. We have an opportunity to get one of our own, the son of the soil, to undertake such duties. What would not make William Ruto to undertake that duty? And we are very proud that today, William Ruto has agreed. All we are asking for, that arrangement must end at AUC, because it is the heads of state that are voting. But locally, nothing stops Okango and the team, Joho, Babu Owino, Sifuna, Wandai, Oparanya, from Eugene Wamalwa, Kalonzo Musyoka, from criticizing constructively Kenya Kwanza where they fail. And where they do well, we congratulate them. So they should not think that because Raila Amolo Odinga is going to AUC, we will soften on the issues of concern to the people. No. We are outside. We are in the position. We'll do what we have to do.
Do you wish to respond, Boyd?
And, of course, what every Kenyan should be thinking of now is to have government succeed, that our government should succeed. And that whether opposition or in Kenya Kwanza, we are all Kenyans, and we need to support the government of the day. We need to put our best foot forward. We need to do things in the correct way and support the current administration for us to have a better country. So like in supporting Raila Odinga to be the AU chairman or the chairman of the African Union Commission, that is a good political gesture from the president, that even in a contested election we can still close ranks and move forward as a country. So it's good for our country, it's good for the people of Kenya, it's good for Africa.
Okango, what does Raila's quote-unquote exit from the Kenyan politics, should he get this AUC chairman position, mean especially for local politics in the country?
First of all,
especially also his back.
First of all, Raila is not going anywhere far. Let me just put it, he's going nowhere. Because Raila Odinga, people have been trying to imagine that he'll be absent, he will not do 1, 2, 3. But let me tell you, Raila Odinga has got students of politics. Those who have gone through Raila Odinga School of Politics understand one thing. They understand that human rights, needs, and wants are more important. They understand that the concern to the people are more important and must be addressed pronto. And therefore, consultations will be there. While we wish him the best and would want him to be at Addis and address issues, continental issues, we also know that back home, his students will be working very hard. So there's no vacuum. He has enough brigade that he has put in place to ensure that the journey that is started, what we call Canaan, we see light at the end of the day. So in my view, there are 3 things that will happen. Number 1, in the absence of Raila Amolo Odinga, Azimio formation or whatever political formation that will be, will have a new leader.
Okay.
In the absence of Raila Amolo Odinga, ODM will have a new leader. In the absence of Raila Amolo Odinga, nationally, and particularly from the Luo Nyanza, where I come from, they'll have a new leader. And those changes will progressively take place. But interestingly, leaders emerge. And those his students that he has taught so well, he has, mentored, they'll just emerge. And they'll fill those vacuums and will go. But I can also tell you, you can never replace Raila Amolo Odinga. You see, Raila Amolo Odinga is a titan, is a legend. You cannot inherit or replace a legend. You can only follow your path. Kenya is a democratic state, and therefore there is no emperor's tool to inherit. So you cannot imagine that you'll be the next Raila. Raila is Raila. There's a reason why he's Baba, why he's Enigma. So you cannot. But I agree that his students who have gone through his school of politics will in one way or another come out and fill in the gap and proceed with the journey as he started it. And as I said again, he's going nowhere. He's going nowhere. It says that the Raila spirit lives. His consultation is 2 hours away from Addis Ababa. So we are with Raila. We are with him.
But I see you nodding. So,
I think one of the requirements, if Raila assumes that chairmanship, is that he will not engage in local politics.
Okay.
And
is that documented?
Yes. And
on which statute of the AU?
On the AU charter, that, being in that position, you cannot engage in local politics or even the politics of other countries.
Okay.
All you'll be doing is at the policy level and being able to really drive the agenda of Africa. I mean, without having this sectarian interest among countries or the local politics. So I wish ODM well. Let them have, they have good leaders amongst themselves, and a leader will emerge, maybe. But also, to fit into Raila Odinga's shoes is a tall order. This guy has invented himself for a long time. That's why even if he decides to stand for an election, there's a constant number that he gets. And I think it will be a tall order for people in ODM and in the Azimio coalition to have a person of the stature of Raila Odinga now challenging a sitting president.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move now to the Haiti matter. We did see what the Interior CS had to say, Professor Kithure Kindiki. But I want to pick your mind, Fred, on this whole issue. We've seen the U.S. has, withdrawn its personnel from Haiti, but we see, the country will be proceeding to deploy. What do you make of this Haiti deployment?
First of all, there's a court order in place that is prohibiting Kenya from deploying the police officers in Haiti. Reason, we don't have a reciprocating arrangement. That is the law. Number 2, look who we want to deploy. We want to deploy police officers to go into a country that the gangs assassinated their own president. We want to deploy our police officers, 1,000 of them, to go into a country that today the acting prime minister cannot step foot in the source of Haiti. He has been declared a persona non grata. He is not wanted by his own people.
Okay.
And we are taking our police officers to be butchered. Let me tell you, the situation in Haiti is deteriorating day by day. Listen to their gang leader, the barbecue. You are taking our police officers to be barbecue sauce in Haiti. I want to ask President William Ruto. I know you would really want to put Kenya on the map. You really want to showcase how our trained police officers, for sure they are trained, they are knowledgeable, trained, but where you are taking them, is a death trap. Because the gang in Haiti are very dangerous. They have killed their own, they have taken over everything. Every day it is chaos. I don't think our police officers would want to come back in caskets. I don't think so. Today, we're also being told there are some police officers who have opted out because they are seeing what is happening. But the United States of America have a reason why they opted out. Why would you experiment with a developing country like Kenya while we have got other superpowers that can venture into that war? It is not our war. It is not. The war in Haiti is not our war. What is our interest? What do we want to experiment? I would want to advise that if, forget about even the court order, if they don't want to follow the court order, but please, let's not experiment with the police officers. As much as they are knowledgeable, trained, and equipped, that gang in Haiti, from what we see on other new international channels, we read on other international press, that gang is a bad gang. It will kill our police officers, and we don't want our police officers to come back home in caskets.
But the U.S. military on Sunday said that it had flown in forces to beef up security at the U.S. Embassy in Haiti and allow non-essential personnel to leave. When we see superpowers like the U.S. are withdrawing, yet Kenya wants to deploy, why does the government seem very keen? Because you also heard what the CS had to say today.
Let me say that Kenya is a community among many nations.
Yes.
And Kenya will be the lead force in Haiti. Remember, when our army went to Somalia, we captured Kismayu without firing a single shot. The US also had left Somalia when part of its military was badly dismembered by the militia in Somalia. Though we've suffered some small casualties in Somalia, but it was because of the lapses which were there. Kenya will be the lead force. There will be other nations joining Kenya. This is a ragtag militia, not organized in any way. I think our security is better trained to handle these things.
Okay.
Sometimes sometimes it's sensational. The US has flown its military to safeguard its interest in the embassy so that for the safety of its own employees. But as soon as our forces land there will be other forces from other countries. Okay. Because Haiti also deserve to be assisted to have a governing. The guy running around with an AK-47, when our men in uniform land there, I think that guy will have nowhere to hide himself. I mean, it's not an unorganized army that you can say we are battling. These are just a ragtag militia that, I mean, there is no strategy for them. All they do is block, banning of tires on the road, blocking the highways. That one will be dealt with by our own security people.
Fred, why are you laughing?
I'm laughing because, you see, what calls a ragtag militia, who killed their own president, who has barred their acting prime minister. By the way, as it is today, Haiti, they have no government. There is no government. In fact, people are asking ourselves, who is that person who came to sign those documents? Who is he? He's acting prime minister. They have not gone into a democratic election. So, when you call them some ragtag militia, and they are killing their own senior-most officials who are protected, what can they do to our police officers? In any case, which law allows Kenya to deploy National Police Service Unit? The deployment through approval of Parliament should be that of the armed forces. The National Police Service are not part of the armed forces. But I don't want to go into that issue because the court dealt with it. And the court gave an order prohibiting Kenya from deploying the police into Haiti. What I would want to say is very simple. We admire our uniformed men and women. They are trained. They have undergone intensive training. They can handle issues. But what we are saying is that we should never at any given time underestimate the danger in a foreign land, because we have seen what happens. We have seen people die. We have seen their own kill their own. Why would we wait until our forces go there, then they come back? Even the Somali Kismayo that is saying that we captured without firing a shot. Are you aware that we have people went into Kismayo and never came back?
I said there were casualties, and those casualties were a result of lapses of our people. After a long time, I think they relaxed in Somalia, and then Al-Shabaab would just eat them like an ambush or something like that. But when they went there, they were properly, they were on the mission, and they captured Kismayo very early in the morning without firing a single shot. And Fred Okango does not want to acknowledge that.
No, that one I acknowledge.
Yes, our men, our policemen are fully trained. They will hit the ground in Haiti knowing the danger ahead of them. They will be well equipped and prepared. I mean, it's a simple thing. You secure the key installations there, bring in the prime minister from wherever he is, he's flown in, he has the protection, and other member states will send in...
Voit is not telling the truth. When they started the Kenya Kwanza regime, they told us that the Kenyan forces, the police officers, will go and guard government installations and protect, not to deal with the gang. Today, we are being told that they are going to deal with the gang in Haiti. So the question is, if you're going to deal with this gang that have got more sophisticated weapons that we don't know where they're importing them from, they have killed, they have assassinated their president, they have stopped their prime minister from accessing the land, they have taken over everything, how are we going to deal with them? However much trained we are. And that's why we are saying, maybe Honorable William Ruto, or President William Ruto, let me call him that, because I think Boyd is getting a bit jittery about that, must think and delay this process until such a time it will be easier to tackle that gang. Number 3, the language that our police officers speak and the other language that the gang speak is different. Communication barrier. The terrain, they don't understand it. I can tell you and assure you, it will be very difficult for our officers to master the terrain, to learn the language, and deal with the gang as fast as possible as is expected of them. That means there will be serious casualties when they arrive in Haiti.
Okay. Brilliant. So now let's look at the war against corruption. We've seen the NHIF audit. We did see the results out of that. Boyd, is this an effort that Kenya Kwanza, you think in your view, that the Kenya Kwanza government is keen to ensure that sort of the big fish are also caught? And I mean, we've heard what the president has had to say about the war on corruption. Is the NHIF audit perhaps the first stepping stone into seeing many more of that?
I think when we started this interview, I said that we are lucky as a country to have a president who has the courage to do the right thing.
Okay.
However, I don't know the people below him. And I will give you an example. Like, there was an audit by the public service on people with fake academic credentials.
Yes.
It has been ongoing for many administrations, but it's the first time that people have left their jobs and they are being arrested and taken to court. For, I mean, anybody who has been found to have had fraudulent academic qualifications has been fired and they've been taken to court. There was an issue like the issue of the subsidies. Any other leader would not have done away with that, but it was a painful decision and the president had the courage to do that. The president is serious about fighting corruption. And all I'm asking is that the agencies who are mandated by law to help the country fight corruption, that is something that we must fight by all means necessary. I don't think that Kenya will develop and will go far as a country if we allow corruption and inefficiencies and incompetencies to be part of our life. Those are things we must really guard against. And I would support our agencies in the fight against corruption. I would, all those who are named, and it should not just be taking people to court. It should be that if you have stolen 100 million, that 100 million is recovered from you. You are left destitute, so that it serves as an example. You know, the most sad story is that you come in as a public servant, everybody knows your net worth, everybody knows you didn't have anything, you are neighbors with people in Eastlands or Embakasi or Ngong. All of a sudden you live in Karen or Runda. Nobody questions how you got the money to go there. And then you leave office, somebody else is appointed to that office, the people below you tells you, you know, so-and-so did this. I mean, it's a continuous behavior by civil servants who always enrich themselves by being in offices and benefiting themselves. And successive regimes have not been able to deal with this issue. And I think it's high time that we tackle this issue.
Fred, the EACC uncovered systemic loopholes that facilitated significant financial mismanagement and corruption within NHIF. Correct. When you look at that procedure and what EACC did, do you think there is the will to be able to fight corruption in the country?
In fact, Waiters put it very well. You see, first of all, let's start from the two offices. One of them is called Controller of Budget. Controller of Budget every 4 months gives what is called Budget Implementation Report and tables to the houses. If you look at it, it has shown there is mismanagement, there's misappropriation, there's wastage, there's corruption, and there's theft. Nothing has happened. They've even gone against the PFM Act that requires that there certain percentage of the public money must go into development. Some are using 8.3%, well, it should be 30. Now go back to the other office called Auditor General's Office. Every 6 months, after the end of the financial year, they submit a report of audit of all public entities. Now, let me take you to what is called audit and accounts of public entities. The provisions of Article 2, I think 259 or something, if I don't get it. Now, it's actually 226. It says that if a public office holder or a political office holder misappropriate public funds, misuses, or directs contrary to the law, then that person shall be liable for the loss and shall make good, whether in office or not. That is the law, not Okango. But look, we have investigative authorities, investigate, audit, give a finding, and that finding end up in the shelf. No one is making good of the loss, no one is convicted of theft, and no one is charged. That is why the NADCO recommendation, and that's why this NADCO report, boy, it is very good, has recommended that the chief registrar, so that we amend what is called Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act, amend that the chief registrar shall keep the records of all those who have been convicted of economic crimes and other corruption-related cases. So that we know that in the history of this country, the following were convicted of theft of public money. So what has happened in NHIF, which is now being changed into SHF? And remember, it's just the change of the name. Look at even the regulations that Nakumincha is talking about. Those regulations have not gone through public participation. They have not been approved by Parliament. It means we are still going to go back where we were, because it is a systemic issue. It is both a systemic and system issue. A student of system practice will tell you a systemic issue is deeply rotten. In fact, you cannot change it unless you overhaul. Are we willing to overhaul the NHIF, do away with it, disband it, start from afresh? I don't think the government of the day is willing, because they're telling us they're even willing now to register people by transferring the data from NHIF to SHF. We are not going to change this thing. So I'm happy that EACC in their system audit, they have recovered, they have discovered that there are certain malpractices that were happening. There are hospitals that were paid for what they ought not to have been paid for. So a systems audit reveals that. But it also boils down to the people we put into office. The selection of people into public office require that you have to look at suitability, as I said, competency, and one thing that is called personal integrity. If you put people that have no personal integrity, however much systems are working, everything is good, you will end up with funds being stolen. And that's why I agree with Boyd when he says recovery of the money. If President William Ruto is honest about fighting corruption, if the systems are working in fighting corruption, we would want to see, as the people of Kenya, recoveries of the funds stolen, people being held liable, make good of the lost money, so that we can actually say, during this time William Ruto was the president, we lost this much and this was fully recovered. And even when he was not, what was stolen in the previous regimes, he has managed to recover them. That is what we want to see, and we shall congratulate him. But I have to say that he has made good progress. He has made good progress, even though there is more to be done.
Absolutely. And on that one, gentlemen, I see you both agree. You want to say something briefly about it?
One of the issues about corruption is that it never started yesterday.
Yes.
It started from the first Kenyatta administration, then came to the Moi administration, Kibaki administration, Uhuru, and even in this current regime, there would be issues of corruption. What we have to do is put a stop.
Okay.
I would expect that all the agencies, when somebody is arrested for corruption, they should be able to freeze all the assets that the person has, so that by the time the case is concluded, all those properties are forfeited to state. ASCC has run a very good campaign where sometimes people who are rich and they have unexplained wealth are asked to justify how they acquired the wealth. If not, then that wealth is forfeited to the state. We should go for those people.
Okay.
Like my friend has said, some offices will be let down by the people who are running the offices. I am very uncomfortable with the office of the DPP in the manner in which they've rushed to withdraw some cases in court without allowing it to be fully decided by the court.
Okay.
I have a problem when certain cases which you think ought to have been prosecuted are not being prosecuted.
Okay.
And I think it's just a matter of time before some serious consequences of a non-decision by the current DPP comes into play.
Okay. Brilliant. On that note, gentlemen, allow us to take a short break. When we come back, the conversation right here continues. It's getting spicy enough. Keep your feedback coming. We shall also be opening our lines for you to call in and also chime in into the conversation. My guest here in studio, Barnabas Kiplagat-Boyd, political strategist and advisor, as well as Fred Okango, political affairs secretary in Azimio. Do stay with us. You're back in a few minutes. Keep your feedback coming.
Na safari hii katika Mfahamu Kiongozi tutakuletea viongozi aina mbalimbali.
Nikuwe na Nisani kama 10 na pia nikuwe menua minibus. Minibus niko niwa.
Kushinda unaangalia simu ya mzee. Soma Biblia ama ingia kwa washroom ujisugue mpaka nimetoa hivi.
I don't know whether any of my children would want to get into the political field. Sijajua bado.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30 kuendelea.
Join us on a journey through the concrete jungles and rising skylines, where every beam, every nail tells a story of progress and vision.
In every aspect of life, you have to look at several dynamics.
From groundbreaking,
Nowadays with the tech, you can check on different websites or you check online and you can see some inspiration. So at least that one would be a direction already. I'll know like what kind of style you're going for.
to finishing touches, witness the dedication of the hard-working teams who bring these ambitious dreams to reality. The Realtor, Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m.
That 4 minutes past the hour. Thank you for staying with us right here on the Daily Report on Power and Politics segment. My guest in studio, Barnabas Kiplagat-Boyd, political strategist and advisor, as well as Fred Okango, political affairs secretary in Azimio. Let's look at now what we saw as the dust settling between the arms of government, specifically the executive and the judiciary. Fred, do you imagine that perhaps following the resolution that we saw and the decision that was made, we shall be circling back to such a scenario, or has this solved the tiff that was between the two arms of government?
Well, all these arms of government derive their power from the people.
Yes.
And it is interesting that when Lady Justice Martha Koome went to see President Ruto, there were discussions that we were never told what they discussed. The expectation of the public would have been that after all that accusation, that there were actually corrupt judges in the courts, and after the threats by Rigiji that they'll file a petition, they should have proceeded, but they didn't. So that ceasefire was temporal. We have seen courts, making pronouncements and making decisions that in one way or another do not favor the regime of the day. And we have seen the executive saying that this project will proceed irrespective of whatever court says. Mm-hmm. One of them is those Mau roads, you remember, that for sure the petitioner claims that is interfering with the sustainable environment in that region. But they have said it will go on. The other one is housing levy. The other one is Haiti that we're talking about. So for me, I look at it from the point that while these arms of government are having their powers from the people, all of them, mm-hmm. and their funding is also done by the people, but they are interrelated in a way. Look who appoints the Chief Justice. Look who appoints the judges. Look who appropriates funds to the judiciary. So you will realize that at some point it becomes difficult to actually be independent. So they are interdependent. But that is not the case. The case is, for as long as they are interdependent and they are working in a way that they support each other, that's fair. But when it comes to operational functions where each arm must do what they have to do, I think they should be independent enough to do that boldly and within the law. That is what we are lacking.
Okay.
So if the courts today were to pronounce themselves on an issue, they should not be bothered that our budget will be cut in the next financial year. They should pronounce themselves on that issue fully so that it is to the benefit of the majority, because that justice, people want it. And lastly, the executive must stop being bullish. We saw when the executive became bullish, we saw Kenya Kwanza politicians going to the podium and cautioning the judiciary that if you do 1, 2, 3, you shall see. Those threats must end, and I hope they have ended, because I've not seen them since that time. Today, we would want to see a judiciary that is well-funded, a judiciary that is bold, a judiciary that is keen in addressing the conflicts and offering solutions that are long-lasting.
Okay.
At the same time, we want to see an executive that lives true to its function, offering policy intervention and leading this country to prosperity. Not an antagonistic executive, not antagonistic judiciary. Because the judiciary, the judges are human beings. If you tackle them the wrong way, they'll wait for you at the court. And they'll look at that issue objectively, but with a mind that these are issues that are affecting them also as ordinary Kenyans, and they'll deal with it. So we would want to see a relationship that is admirable, a relationship that is cordial, but a relationship that is guided by the rule of law. Not intimidation, not coercion, rule of law.
But on the morning show back then, you did foresee and you predicted that there would be indeed a meeting between the judiciary and the executive. Are we going to see another Boyd prophecy regarding this whole issue?
No, I predicted correctly that there were going to be a meeting between the president and other heads of arms of government, that's Parliament, Attorney General, and the leadership of Judiciary. And I said it from a point of information, and the issues which were agreed was that they would be hiring more judges at the Court of Appeal, because those are the issues that the Chief Justice raised, that they did not have enough, and then they would be having additional numbers of close to 30 again in the High Court to reduce the backlog of cases.
Yes.
But beyond that, judiciary is supposed to dispense justice to Kenyans. And the issue of accountability and the judges doing the right thing, one, there must be sufficient training for our judicial officers. We should give them more researchers. Starting from the small claims court, when you are claim of less than $1 million, you go to the small claims court.
Yes.
That small claims court must administer justice to the very people who are before that court. The magistrates court, you see, the judicial system is very expensive in Kenya. Hiring lawyers and retaining them, like from the magistrates court to the High Court to the Court of Appeal, and maybe finally to the Supreme Court. And what we find troubling is sometimes a similar matter goes to before a court of law, similar facts, similar law. One judge will give a different opinion or a different judgment, another one will give a different judgment. Sometimes people are appointed to the judiciary, maybe they don't have sufficient training in their background as lawyers. And I think in the last regime, the Judiciary Training Institute was taken away from them. I don't think they even have a training institute now. We need to invest on training of our judicial officers so that you know, we're only looking at a small component of the decisions against the government. About the many decisions that are being done against the ordinary Kenyans who have no voice, they can't come and they don't have the platform to say, I've been wronged. And then this guy, maybe even your entire inheritance or entire property is gone by crooks. And you have seen, all of us are alive to this thing.
Yeah, okay.
So we personally, I think we want a relationship between the executive and judiciary that is for the benefit of the people of Kenya.
Absolutely. Thank you. We did ask you to call in, and we have a caller here, Samuel Omondi, calling from Ugunja. Good evening, Samuel. What's your question or feedback regarding the show tonight to the guests?
Hello?
Hello, yes, good evening.
Hello?
Hello, Samuel?
Hello? Hey.
Yes. If you could lower the volume of your TV,
Hello?
please, and go ahead and ask your question or your comment regarding the program.
Hello?
Hello, Samuel, can you hear me? We will be trying to get him back, but I'm seeing some feedback here on our WhatsApp number. Calling yourself Mawera Martin, you say, how can you appoint the corrupt individuals in government and expect them to help you in fighting corruption? Perhaps your feedback to that, Boyd.
You know, corruption is in many forms. There are those who are actually corrupt, and there are those who are perceived to be corrupt.
Yes.
Sometimes somebody can make an allegation of that so-and-so is corrupt. But if you are told to prove that allegation of corruption, it is hard. I don't know from what, I mean, with specifics you would have helped us if we came up with a specific, I cannot pinpoint over a specific person. They may have integrity issues, yes, but can that warrant? Is it something that has been just sensationalized by other people? I have seen people's names being tarnished even when they are not corrupt. Yeah.
Okay, absolutely.
I think an area of concern is senior state officials or state officers or public officers, if you like. When names are taken to parliament, you see, our constitutional principle is such that some of these state officers, they are nominated by the appointing authority, and then they are approved by parliament before they are appointed by the same appointing authority.
Yes.
But you realize that instructions are given that these names must pass as they are. So I started by saying earlier that the criteria or the principle of selection into public office, suitability, competency, and personal integrity. That is the guiding principle. So when members of parliament receive instructions, and that's why for us in Azimio we say there are certain arms of government and departments that have been captured. They cannot think, act independently. So they're just pushing. You realize that you end up with the wrong people in the right offices. So what happens? They fail the government of the day. They are not able to perform, and they actually harbor some of those malpractices like corruption that you're talking about. So in my view, I think the starting point is on election.
Okay.
The people of Kenya must elect somebody with personal integrity. So that that person, when he goes to parliament, if a name comes to parliament for approval, and having gone through the vetting process, and he realizes that this person is holding a fake degree, this person is not having integrity, this person is suitable, they can block it. We have seen instances where parliament, there's a time parliament blocked appointment of one of the CEOs who was supposed to be CEO of Kenya Power to be appointed in some institution. They blocked. So it can be done. Two, the issue of perceived corruption that Boyd is talking about. When the executive perceives judiciary to be corrupt, it creates suspicion even from the public that are seeking justice in the courts. They actually will not trust the judges. Say, but if the highest authority in the land is saying they're corrupt, why would I appear before them? You see, that creates a problem. So you cannot address that issue. So what I would want to say is that we strongly believe in separation of powers, and we strongly believe in working institutions. What we must do, even as Kenyans, we must strengthen our institutions, support our institutions, and also shout when our institutions are not performing as expected. That way, we will be growing democracy, we will be growing institutions. But when we go accusing, counter-accusing, every institution will come out and defend themselves. And when they defend themselves, it will be chaotic. So for me, I think that in fighting corruption, number one, particularly, you know, there are these small corruptions down there. A police officer receives a bribe of 200, 100, 500, but there are mega corruption, economic crimes that have costed Kenya's money. Let me give an example. If today, money is set aside for building an intensive care unit, and that money is stolen, you are actually a murderer who is stealing that money, because you are denying people oxygen, you are denying them Medicare. If money is set aside for building bridges, building roads, and when the vehicles pass there, they cause accident, you are actually the murderer. You should be crucified and hung till you die, because you are a murderer. So those are issues that we can deal with by putting the right people into the right places.
Okay. Going back, some feedback here. Dominic Sang Ayabei, corruption has no cure in this country. Leaders themselves are corrupt in the government. Okay, it seems Kenyans are very agitated about this whole corruption issue. Do you think that perhaps, as we look at the regime of this Kenya Kwanza government, we'll get to a point that we will say they inspire confidence in Kenyans to be able to specifically fight corruption in the country?
I told you I have confidence in the leadership of the president alone, and the other people below him are...
the problem?
There are people who are problematic, and I think the president should take action against them. Number two, the role of parliament must be examined again. Like, it was very lovable when they said the parliament were investigating the sugar laced with mercury. What parliament has no capacity to investigate an issue. What parliament can do is ask for the answers from those responsible, like KEPS, like the DCI, like the investigating agencies. I would want parliament to summon the officers responsible and hold them to account, and even censor them or impeach them in parliament, and send the president to fire them if they are found not to be able, not to be doing their work correctly. But you see, an issue comes before parliament. Parliament says we are going to Mombasa to investigate the issue. That is drawing allowances from our taxes, paying hotels, spending time, and then they write a report that has no effect, because you cannot take a report that has originated from parliament to a court of law. What they will do is they will recommend an investigation again, the DSCC to investigate. Instead of saying we are seized of this material, call the CEO of EACC, ask for timelines in which this matter can be looked into and prosecuted. Call the DCI, call the people responsible. That is how parliament can help this country move forward. But when parliament becomes part of the team that is investigating, just drawing allowances for nothing and then having a report that has no effect in law. So I think our way of our way of saying we are holding people to accountable has totally not been understood by our members of parliament.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, brilliant. Albert, good evening. We have a caller, Albert, calling in from Nairobi. Good evening, Albert. How are you? Do you have a question or comment to the guests tonight?
On the issue of corruption.
Yes.
My comment would be.
Yes.
If we have to really tackle corruption, first we have to put in the wealth declaration procedures. Say that any state officer appointed, from the time he is appointed, his wealth be known and publicly declared, and a review be done after every 6 months. That way, we won't have such scenarios where we pose, at the moment, government seems to have the budget corruption, where a state officer, within months of being appointed, the amount of wealth that one accumulates baffles men. And until we get serious on where we want to head, then we'll have a long way to go. We have to be honest to one another. Thank you, and say hi to it.
Thank you so much, Albert, for that. He talks about a review every 6 months. Is that achievable?
You see, the issue is you are told to fill those wealth declaration forms, which is stored. Nobody verifies what you have declared as true. And then periodically they cannot review. You know, like now the investigating agencies like the intelligence and other investigating agencies ought to be giving information on these people, that this guy has acquired this property, this guy has acquired this property, and now compared to your salary, then it is not, I mean, the evidence will be there because you have to justify how you've acquired that property. I mean, without such stringent measures, we will just be talking about corruption. This regime will just go and you see, Kenyans will get tired because you remember during Kibaki's time when there was a lot of optimism that they would be fight corruption, and even Kenyans were arresting police officers who were taking bribes and taking them to police. Only that fight just fizzled out and no action was taken. And then we went back to our original
state. I just hold on to that as well as Okango. Let's pick a call from Kimathi, calling in from Githurai. Good evening, Kimathi.
My name is Kimanthi.
Kimanthi,
Hello?
yes.
Yes, my name is Kimanthi.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I just want to understand the clarity of taking our soldiers to Haiti. What the interest of the government to take these soldiers of ours to Haiti, and we have some information. When this prime minister was here, so me, I did not go to his country. Now, when you consider this from here to Haiti, there is no government in Haiti. Who is going to benefit from our soldiers? Or the government has hidden agenda? That's my question.
Sorry, come again. We lost at some point. Come again, Kimanthi.
I wanted to ask about the soldiers who are being taken to Haiti.
Yes, the police officers, yes.
And then the court has said is not wise. Why is the government against the court? And still, we understand the prime minister of the Haiti was here. After all, when he went to Haiti, he did not reach the Haiti. So, may I know who is benefiting from the soldiers of our country? Because there is no government there.
Okay.
Why do you want to take our soldiers to be butchered there? And you can see what's happening at the moment in Haiti. You understand the business?
Thank you, Kimanzi. Perhaps I think it's what Fred was alluding to earlier.
Kenyans are worried. You know, those police officers, their uncles, their dads, their sons, their husbands, they're worried. And I think it is important that we also try and protect them by giving the right advice, but also highlighting issues are there. But back to the to the corruption issue, I think what I agree with what Boyd is saying. You see, most of these corruption cases, some of them even take longer in court. They take so long, and by the time they are heard and determined, people had forgotten about them, and a new case. But let me tell you, when people are appointed into public office, there's a question that the parliamentarian asks, what is your worth? And you see people flaunting figures, 400 million, 5 billion, 300 million. But
in this latest regime, we saw billions.
We saw billions. So we strongly believe that actually they are worth that. But that might not be the case. People do that in anticipation that should they steal, then they actually gave the right figure. And therefore, there is no issue for suspicion. I'm not saying they are doing that, but I'm saying somebody would easily say, I'm worth 400 million, so that when I get into office, I steal to the extent of 400 million, and therefore I cannot be questioned. So those wealth declaration forms are nothing.
Okay.
What we must do
is verify those information.
Verify the information, and that's the suitability you're talking about. Number two, when these people get into office, there is a report that is given by the Auditor General in their departments and ministries. That report must be the first piece of evidence that ODPP should use to prosecute these people. Because the Constitution tells us that the audit report shall ascertain whether the public funds were used legally and efficiently.
Brilliant.
For the right purpose.
For the right purpose.
Yes.
So let's get into the closing remarks. 30 seconds to each of you, and I begin with you, Boyd, and I'll end with Fred. What would you like to see, and how is the state of the nation so far? Are we cruising nicely?
Well, the state of the nation is good. I strongly believe in the leadership of His Excellency the President, and I only encourage Kenyans that we should rise up and do the right thing. I think the issue of our economy is now sorted. There was a concern around Eurobond, which was to be defaulted, but now that is water under the bridge. We've sorted the politics of the country. So we are now on a trajectory of growth economically, and we are able to have a conversation with Azimio and move the country forward. So I expect that Kenyans would be optimistic enough, and we move forward as a country. We fix the things which are wrong in this country jointly. Because I think it is also in the interest of Azimio, though they are aspiring to leadership, they would want to lead a better country. They would want to find Kenya a better place than how we found it from the last regime.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Boyd.
Let me pick from where I left. For sure, we would want a better country. This is our country. We would not want to see this regime fail, because if it fails, we all fail. However, the state of the nation is the state of the people. The state of the people shows us today that the cost of living is still high because of the issue of cost of fuel, the cost of energy, the cost of education. We are told today that the government has not remitted the capitation that they collected from the e-citizen, for example. The schools are suffering. We want to ask the regime of the day, while we criticize you, we shall criticize you constructively. We shall support you where we can, but we shall also highlight issues of concern to the people that you should fix and give alternative. That is the constructive criticism. So we welcome that debate, but we want to ask the government of the day, please lower the cost of living. The mamamboga, boda, mkokoteni, that you promised good life, today are all suffering. You must now be human enough to realize that the state of the nation is the state of the Kenyan people. That state is in very bad state.
Absolutely. And that's why we wind it up right here. We thank you so much for your feedback. Evans Mogoro saying, watching from Kericho, the conversation is great. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on the program. I've been speaking to Barnabas Kiplagat Boyd, a political strategist and advisor, and to the extreme right, Fred Okango, Political Affairs Secretary in Azimio. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on the program. And of course, for watching us, we thank you as well for your feedback that we didn't have time to go through it all. And also, we appreciate the call-ins. As always, the conversation continues online. My name is George Maringa. Our sign language interpreter earlier on was Catherine Simala. We want to wish you a wonderful night from Nairobi. I'll see you tomorrow on The People's Court.
Na safari hii katika Mfahamu Kiongozi tutakuletea viongozi aina mbalimbali.
Nikuwe na nisani kama